Welcome and good morning. The City Council and I are honored to join active service, retired military, family, and friends as we pay tribute to our fallen soldiers. We take time to reflect on all that we have because of our servicemen and women. Today, we honor and remember. We begin by thanking our local veterans groups, American Legion Post 359, the Sons of the American Legion, and the Ladies Auxiliary, all who are instrumental in making this event happen every year. I'd like to introduce my colleagues. First, we have Councilmember Marcel Rodardi, Leonard Shyrock, and Luigi Vernola. Mayor Mendez is on a belated honeymoon and sends his regrets that he cannot be here today, but he's having a whole lot more fun. Joining us today also is our city manager, Mike Egan. You're all very special guests, but we have a few others that we'd like to introduce. Sharing the morning with us is Assembly Member Majority Leader Ian Calderon and former Council Member Gordon Steffenhagen. I want to thank you all for being here. At this time, the Majority Leader would like to say a few words. Yes, no?
Well, first, I want to thank the city and the council members for all of their hard work that they put into this event, the city staff, all the hard work the city staff puts into this event so that we can be here together and share in this moment. Today is about remembering. It's about recognizing and appreciating the sacrifices that were made on our behalf. Recognizing and appreciating that individuals that I have never met and will never know made the ultimate sacrifice so that I could be here, standing before you, representing you in Sacramento. And days like these are really important, not just for all of us, but also for the next generation, the millennial generation, to understand the importance of the sacrifices that were made and to never take anything for granted. And to not take for granted that we have servicemen and women still today overseas putting their lives on the line so that we can live in a free nation, in a just nation, in the greatest state, in the greatest country in the world. And I cannot say how proud I am of all of you and of all of our servicemen and women overseas. But I also want to take time to recognize the families of those who had loved ones that were lost in conflicts and that currently have family members overseas. Our hearts are with you, and in my capacity as a legislator and the Majority Leader of the California State Assembly, if there's ever anything I can do for you, call me and I will be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'll ask everyone to please stand for the invocation given by Bradley Shoup, Commander of the Sons of the American Legion. Following the invocation, we'll have a presentation of colors by the Combined Color Guard of the Southeast Academy and the American Legion Ladies Auxiliary. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Wade Kerrigan, past commander of the American Legion Post 359. Bradley?
Please uncover. Give me 1 second, please. This is the first time I've done this. Okay, let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, keep us in your faith. Be with those families and friends of our fallen comrades. Lay your healing hand upon those who are suffering. Be with us as we celebrate and remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Amen. Cover.
Would you please recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Right turn, arch. Hold flag, arch. Left turn, arch. Hold flag, arch. Charlie, halt.
You may be seated. We all know that Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem. Most of us memorized it as a child. But today the words float through our minds and over our lips, not even realizing what they mean. At any sporting event, you will see people that are too busy to remove their hat or place their hand over their heart. So let me tell you a story about our song. Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore in the early 1800s. Our nation was engaged in a brutal conflict with Britain. After the Revolutionary War, the British had suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of the United States. But in 1814, determined not to be embarrassed again, the British saw their opportunity to exact their revenge by capturing our nation's capital, running President Madison out of the city, and burning many of our government buildings. Then they went to Baltimore, the nation's third most populated city. They went there to attack Fort McHenry. Along the way, Britain had accumulated many prisoners. One of these was the well-respected Dr. William Beans, whose many prominent friends enlisted the services of Francis Scott Key to negotiate with the British for his release. Key agreed and arranged for Colonel John Skinner, an American agent for prisoner exchange, to join him. They rowed out on a small boat and boarded the British ship to secure the release of Dr. Beans. The good news is that after nearly a week, the negotiations were successful. The bad news is the British decided that first they were going to attack Fort McHenry, and no prisoner would be released until after the fort was destroyed. Fort McHenry was a strategic military base guarding Baltimore, defended by 1,000 men. The British knew that the defeat of Fort McHenry would serve as another demoralizing event for the Americans. So the plan of the British war fleet, consisting of about 18 warships, was to relentlessly fire their superior weapons and completely annihilate Fort McHenry. This was a crucial moment in our young nation's history. Even though we had become a sovereign nation in 1776, the United States was still fighting for total independence from the British. On September 13th, 1814, as morning dawned and the haze hung over the ocean, the British war fleet was unleashed. For 24 hours, all of the gunpowder was called upon to demolish Fort McHenry. The sound was deafening. The British war fleet pounded Fort McHenry relentlessly with no relief in sight. And as Francis Scott Key, Colonel Skinner, and Dr. Beans watched the battle, in the illuminated red glare of each bomb, they could see the American flag. They could see the red, white, and blue flag, and they knew that the men inside were not giving up. That flag stood for the United States of America. That flag that stood for the freedoms that our nation cherishes today. It was that flag that stood for the men and women who died to give us our independence. Finally, there was silence. As sunrise came and the heavy mist and smoke from the gunfire lifted, there standing proudly, flying high above the rampart, blowing in the wind, was the American flag. The United States did not yield. The British withdrew from the harbor, and the tide of the war was reversed. Thrilled by the sight of the flag and knowing that the fort had not fallen, Francis Scott Key took a letter from his pocket and wrote some verses on the back. He completed the poem upon his return to shore. The poem was printed in newspapers and was eventually set to music. People began to refer to the song and the flag as the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1916, President Wilson signed an executive order making it the anthem for all military ceremonies. Then on March 3rd, 1931, after 40 previous attempts had failed, Congress passed a law that formally designated the Star-Spangled Banner as the national anthem of the United States. I ask that you join me and stand in reverence of the event of that night to honor the courageous men and women who have fought to keep our flag waving. May we always stand, may we always remove our hats, may we always place our hands over our hearts and sing with honor and respect to the flag and to those who made the ultimate sacrifice to this great nation, the United States of America. Please stand. You may be seated. And while we're doing that, let's give a hand to the All-City Band directed by Frank Innahos. The American Legion Post 359 supports our local veterans and their families and helps to make our ceremony possible. I'm going to ask the president of the Ladies Auxiliary, Becky Bullard, to introduce Post 359 service groups. Becky?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honored veterans, their families, City Council, and most honored guests. Today is a time of reflection of the past, present, and future to come. We have lost many of our honored veterans from all wars, whether during, following, or due to the Supreme Commander in the sky calling them home. Our young men and women continue to fight for the freedoms we have come to believe are ours. But as you know, the price of this gets higher every day. POW MIAs still remain unaccounted for, and they are still being discovered and brought back for interment, answering families' prayers they would be found. So I ask you before you go to your family barbecue, whether it's at home or out somewhere, take time to remember what this day truly means, especially to the veterans and families of those that won't be here today. And when you see a veteran, say thank you for your service, because without them, this world and our country would be far different than it is today. I'd like to introduce the Auxiliary Color Guard, Frankie de Guzman from the Air Force, Melissa Bravko from the Army, Crystal Roma Reyes, Captain Frances Powell, and we had one addition, Lupi, and I don't know what her last name is, but she is in the back and represents us also today. Officers of the Norwalk American Legion, up here is Wayne Kerrigan, is the post commander. Bradley Scoop is the Sons of the American Legion, and I am the president of the Ladies Auxiliary. Will all the American Legion veterans and the VFW please stand and remain standing? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're out there. Come on. Will all the rest of the veterans in the audience please stand? I know we've got a lot of them out there. Thank you for your round of applause. And on the count of three, I would like you, remain standing. On the count of three, I would like you all to say in unison, thank you for your service. 1, 2, 3. Thank you for your service. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Thank you and God bless.
Before we hear from our keynote speaker, the All-City Band will perform the service medley as we pay tribute to all branches of the military. When you hear your song, please stand. Let's give another round of applause to the All-City Band. Today I have the distinct honor of introducing a man who spent nearly 40 years in the military. General Gabrielli served 8 years in the United States Marines, earning his wings as a naval aviator and serving in the Marine Corps Helicopter Squad and as an instructor pilot. General Gabrielli completed his master's degree and became a teacher and then an elementary school principal while serving as a California National Guard soldier part-time. The general was promoted to the rank of colonel in 2001, and then in 2002 was appointed full-time state active duty director of youth programs. Today he carries the rank of Brigadier General, Commander of Youth and Community Programs Task Force. Please give a warm Norwalk welcome to Brigadier General James Gabrielli.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and veterans, thank you for inviting me to join you today in paying tribute to those servicemen and women who left home and did not return. As a community, we've come together to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. I want to tell you what an honor personally from my heart it is to be with you today, particularly you veterans that I share this day with. I'm honored to be in your presence, and I'd like to spend the remainder of our time together sharing some stories about veterans from several of our country's wars. From coast to coast, Americans are gathered to honor the loyalty and bravery of those fallen in military service. While this day is typically spent recalling the valor of men and women who died in combat, we can never forget those quiet professionals who answered that noble call to serve our nation. The passing of those service members didn't make the headlines, but their lives and profound sense of duty and patriotism will resonate with the troops they met and trained with, the missions they executed, and the families they left behind. We can recall the drill sergeant who barked so recruits could learn how to handle stress. We recall the NCO who helped an airman mend a troubled marriage, or the chaplain who listened to and comforted a soldier who had just lost a battle buddy. These are the nameless heroes, except to their families, who live and die each day without want of recognition, who we are obligated to remember. They die in nursing homes and hospitals everywhere, every day. The fact that they did not die in battle does not diminish our responsibility to show our respect for their service. It is not where they died that matters. It is their life given to the greater good of our nation that defines their legacy. It is our responsibility as citizens to honor those who die in service to the nation, but it is equally important to honor them before they pass. These veterans are often not hard to spot in the crowd, and thank you, veterans. They proudly wear the cap or vest bearing their branch of service or the name of a decades-old war or battle. And I knew when I put that statement in my speech that I would see a lot of ball caps and vests today, from the battles that you served in, the ships you were assigned to, or the branch of service that you were assigned to. I'd like to speak about a World War II veteran, and these are our senior service members in our nation right now. The youngest veterans in our midst from World War II would be in their late 80s and 90s, and I had the pleasure of meeting one of our World War II veterans in the audience today at the age of 90. So one of the youngest from World War II is in our midst, and I think I see another World War II veteran on the other side. I'm deeply honored to be here with our World War II veterans. I'm glad that they're with us today. Medal of Honor recipient Private First Class David M. Gonzalez, United States Army, Company A, 127th Infantry, 32nd Infantry Division, Villa Verde Trail, Luzon, Philippine Islands, 25 April 1945, entered service at Pacoima, California. Private First Class Gonzalez was pinned down with his company as enemy fire swept the area, making any movement extremely hazardous. A 500-pound bomb smashed into the company's perimeter, burying 5 men with its explosion. PFC Gonzalez, without hesitation, seized an entrenching tool and under a hail of fire crawled 15 yards to his entombed comrades, where his commanding officer, who had also rushed forward, was beginning to dig the men out. Nearing his goal, he saw his commanding officer struck and instantly killed by machine gun fire. Undismayed, PFC Gonzalez set to work swiftly and surely with his hands and entrenching tool, while enemy sniper and machine gun bullets struck all about him. He succeeded in digging one of the men out of the pile of rock and sand. To dig faster, he stood up, regardless of the greater danger from so exposing himself. He extricated a second man and then another. As he completed the liberation of the third soldier, he was hit and mortally wounded. But the comrades for whom he so gallantly gave his life were safely evacuated. PFC Gonzalez' valiant and intrepid conduct exemplifies the highest tradition of military service. From the Korean War, not the forgotten war, from the Korean War. The youngest veterans in our midst from the Korean War would be in their 80s today. Korean vets, can I see a show of hands? Honor to be in your presence, sir. Honor to be in your presence. Army chaplain Captain Emil Capon grew up on a farm in Pilsen, Kansas. His first calling was to God. God, he said, called him to military service, so he joined the Army. Capon was sent to Korea in 1950 to provide comfort and counsel to the troops as a chaplain during the first months of the Korean War. The soldiers quickly realized he was so much more than a chaplain. He was their soldier saint. On All Saints' Day, his unit came under heavy attack by Chinese forces that until that time, no one thought would enter the Korean conflict. The Chinese forces devastated the American lines into the night and on through the next day. Capon had the chance to fall back to safety with a portion of his unit, but he chose to stay in the thick of the battle to minister to the dying and aid the wounded. He would brave a barrage of bullets, bounding from foxhole to check on his boys. Over and over, he risked his life to retrieve the wounded or the bodies of the fallen. When the wounded were beyond saving, he gave them spiritual comfort, despite finally being captured, and in the midst of being marched away by a Chinese soldier at gunpoint, Capon saw an enemy soldier with his weapon drawn and moments away from executing an American soldier. Sergeant First Class Herbert Miller. Capon defiantly left his captor, pushed the enemy soldier to the ground, and picked Sergeant Miller up from the ditch. The enemy troops were too stunned to react. Capon and Miller spent the remainder of their time in the war interned in a prisoner of war camp in North Korea. Capon died there in 1951. He was posthumously presented the Medal of Honor by the President at the White House on April 12th of this year. What's amazing about this story is Capon did not shoulder a rifle or wield a bayonet. He carried a Bible and holy water. These were the weapons he used in battle, and they were more effective than the bullets of a determined enemy. His death was a tragedy, but his life is what we must learn from. Also from the Korean War, Medal of Honor recipient Sergeant James I. Pointer, United States Marine Corps Reserve, Company A, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division, near Sudong, Korea, 4 November 1950, entered service at Downey, California. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a squad leader in a rifle platoon of Company A in action against enemy aggressor forces during the defense of Hill 532, south of Sudong. When a vastly outnumbering, well-concealed hostile force launched a sudden vicious counterattack against his platoon's hasty defensive position, Sergeant Pointer displayed superb skill and courage in leading his squad and directing its fire against the onrushing enemy. With his ranks critically depleted by casualties and he himself critically wounded at the onslaught, as the onslaught gained momentum and the hostile force surrounded his position, he seized his bayonet, engaged in bitter hand-to-hand combat as the breakthrough continued. Observing 3 machine guns closing in at a distance of 25 yards, he dashed from his position and, grasping hand grenades from fallen Marines as he ran, charged the emplacements in rapid succession, killing the crews of 2 and putting the other out of action before he fell mortally wounded. By his self-sacrificing and valiant conduct, Sergeant Pointer inspired the remaining members of his squad to heroic endeavor in bearing down upon and repelling the disorganized enemy, thereby enabling the platoon to move out of the trap to a more favorable tactical position. His indomitable fighting spirit, fortitude, and great personal valor, maintained in the face of overwhelming odds, sustain and enhance the finest traditions of the U.S. Naval Service. He gallantly gave his life for his country. From the Vietnam War. By the way, I did a little bit of research before I came. 38 service members from the community of Norwalk gave their lives during the Vietnam War. It's quite a sacrifice for this community and for their families. Corporal Larry Leonard Maxim, United States Marine Corps, Company D, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division, Fleet Marine Force. Cam Lo District, Quang Tri Province, Republic of Vietnam, 2 February 1968. Entered service in Los Angeles, California. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, while serving as a fire team leader with Company D, the Cam Lo District headquarters came under extremely heavy rocket, artillery, mortar, and recoilless rifle fire from a numerically superior enemy force, destroying a portion of the defensive perimeter. Corporal Maxim, observing the enemy massing for an assault into the compound across the remaining defensive wire, instructed his assistant fire team leader to take charge of the fire team and unhesitantly proceeded to the weakest section of the perimeter. Completely exposed to the concentrating enemy fire, he sustained multiple fragmentation wounds from exploding grenades as he ran to an abandoned machine gun position. Reaching the emplacement, he grasped the machine gun and commenced to deliver effective fire on the advancing enemy. As the enemy directed maximum firepower against the determined Marine corporal, Maxim's position received a direct hit from a rocket-propelled grenade, knocking him backwards and inflicting severe fragmentation wounds to his face and right eye. Although momentarily stunned and in intense pain, Corporal Maxim courageously resumed his firing position and subsequently was struck again by small arms fire. With resolute determination, he gallantly continued to deliver intense machine gun fire, causing the enemy to retreat through a defensive wire to positions of cover. In a desperate attempt to silence his weapon, the North Vietnamese threw hand grenades and directed recoilless rifle fire against him, inflicting 2 additional wounds. Too weak to reload his machine gun, Corporal Maxim fell to a prone position and valiantly continued to deliver effective fire with his rifle. After 11 and a half hours, during which he was repeatedly hit by fragments from exploding grenades and concentrated small arms fire, he succumbed to his wounds. Having successfully defended nearly half of the perimeter single-handedly, Corporal Maxim's aggressive fighting spirit, inspiring valor and selfless devotion to duty, reflected great credit upon himself and the Marine Corps and upheld the highest traditions of U.S. naval service. He gallantly gave his life for his country. The Iraqi War and Afghanistan War. 2 members from the Norwalk community gave their lives in the Iraqi conflict. In Afghanistan, First Lieutenant Ashley Stump not only epitomizes those who sacrificed all, but reminds us of the female soldiers who have placed themselves in harm's way for their country throughout history and continue to do so even more as we gather today. Ashley joined ROTC in her first year of college at Kent State University in Ohio. That's where she met her future husband, Jason Stump, also a cadet. If you ask Jason, he will tell you that he fell for Ashley instantly. After graduation, Jason went on active duty and Ashley joined the National Guard. Jason proposed during Christmas and soon deployed to Afghanistan. Ashley often talked about deploying. She wanted to serve in a meaningful way. Deploying was a way for her to change lives and do more for her country, as well as the people of Afghanistan. She was proud of Jason, but wished she could be there too. Jason wasn't so sure about that part. In 2010, we were struggling to maintain the edge in Afghanistan, often missing the bad guy by seconds because the only people with information were Afghan women who refused to talk with our male soldiers because it was culturally taboo. So the Army began training female soldiers to be part of elite teams to go out on missions with Army Rangers and Special Forces troops to help build rapport with the Afghan women. These troops would be trained using the same tactics used to build our elite male forces. The Cultural Support Team program, as it was called, filled a critical component of mission success, and combatant commanders knew it. Now the Army needed women for a very specified combat role, one that would put them in the middle of the fight alongside the men. And the men found out quickly that they couldn't do it without them. When Ashley learned about the program, she was very excited. She knew this was the perfect job for her. It was a way to make an immediate impact on people's lives, but she'd have to talk to Jason, who had just returned from a combat tour in Afghanistan. Jason listened to Ashley discuss the idea of volunteering to join the cultural support team. As a husband, he struggled to be supportive of his wife's goals and desires while still wanting to keep her out of harm's way. As an Afghanistan war veteran, he knew the danger and the frustration and the fear and the death. As an Army officer, he wanted the Army to have the best person for the job. He knew that was Ashley. Watching the excitement in her eyes as she talked about the opportunity, he knew she had to go. During the deployment, when she called home, Jason knew she was happy. She was doing exactly what she set out to do. It was a Saturday morning when Jason's doorbell rang. A peek through the door revealed the worst scene a spouse can ever see. The commander, first sergeant, and the chaplain were there, dressed in their blue Army service uniform. Ashley had died, a victim of an improvised explosive device. Alongside her were Sergeant First Class Christopher Domage and Private First Class Christopher Horns. All three died serving their nation in combat, shoulder to shoulder. We honor them all on this Memorial Day. On Memorial Day, tradition dictates that the Stars and Stripes are raised briskly against the wind to the top of the staff and then solemnly lowered to the position of half staff, where it remains only until noon. It is then raised to full staff for the remainder of the day. The half staff position remembers the more than 1 million men and women who gave their lives in service of this nation. At noon, their memory is raised by the living who resolve not to let their sacrifice be in vain, but to rise up in their stead and to continue the fight for liberty. That flag is raised by living and grateful warriors like Herbert Miller and Jason Stump. Their pain is deeply rooted, but so is their resolve to tell the story of their battle buddy, their spouse. Every military family lives in perpetual fear of the knock on the door that is accompanied by 3 service members in blue. There are men and women here and across the country like Jason and Herbert whose lives were never the same, but they carry on each day knowing a void only they can endeavor to fill. So many mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, extended family and friends do their duty every day to ensure their loved one is remembered. They carry on each day with pictures on mantles and mementos of a life not fully lived. They carry on understanding that their loved one chose this life of service, and thus they understood the potentiality of their death as a sacrifice for the sake of freedom. These men and women left behind carry on their message, raising up their memory like an unfurled flag. In conclusion, I want to thank the City Council and the Norwalk community for remembering our nation's fallen and for inviting me to participate in today's event. Abraham Lincoln told the Republic, "Honor the soldier and sailor everywhere who bravely bears his country's cause. Honor also to the citizen who cares for his brother in the field and serves as he best can the same cause." Veterans, ladies and gentlemen, these brave men and women represent not only themselves, but all our veterans. They represent those who served in places across the globe. Together, let us remember those who are deployed in service to our country today. Let us remember those who, because they paid the ultimate sacrifice, are not with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for our veterans in the audience today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General, for sharing those stories. They are so important, lest we forget. I want to share another little story, a little off script. Don't worry, Vicki. There's a gentleman in our audience that I want to talk about today. We need our young people to remember, to understand what we've all been through, what our families have been through, what the veterans have been through. Don Carter served on a naval submarine, and there's a museum for that submarine in Chicago. A young school student visited that museum and was supposed to write a report about something or someone. Somehow or another, through the people at the museum, because Don's a constant visitor, gave the young man Don's name and phone number. Don spoke to him on the phone, sent him all sorts of information, and the young boy wrote his report and put together a storyboard. And it's my understanding that His report has gone through his school, through his community, through his county, and now at the state level, he's gotten his awards for that report. We need to share with our young people, and I want to thank Don Carter for doing just that. I'll now ask Wayne Kerrigan back to the podium for Post Everlasting.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to honor some of our members of the American Legion Post 359 that have passed away this past year. Fidel Chavez, Jr.
No response.
John D. Cullen.
No response.
George J. DeVoy.
No response.
Edmundo M. Garcia.
No response.
Russell Hanson.
No response.
David C. LeCue.
No response.
Larry Pruitt.
No response.
John O. Rodriguez.
No response.
And Joseph R. Taylor.
No response.
At this time, could I ask all to rise for a moment of silence in honor of these that passed away during this past year? Thank you. Please uncover for a moment of silence. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will please take a moment to honor and remember those who laid down their lives for us as we observe the rifle volley by the National Guard Recruiting and Retention Battalion, followed by taps. We will have the members of the American Legion come forward and place the wreath. Thank you. Okay, now we will have the benediction and the retiring of the colors by the Ladies Auxiliary, followed by God Bless America, performed by the All City Band. Bradley?
Uncover. Now, bow our heads. May the strength of the God strengthen us. May the power of God protect us. May the hand of God provide us. May the way of God protect us. May the strength and shield of God provide for us. Amen. Cover?
I want to thank you all for joining us on this very special day. If our veterans could come forward, we'll have a group photo taken to remember today's observance. Thank you all for being here.